So just before we get going, a reminder that the session will be recorded, so people can also have a view who might not be able to join us today live, and then maybe later on just have a recap as well. So as we go on, I'm pretty sure more people will join us. And Louisa, thanks for letting everybody in that's joining the session. So from my side, look, welcome to everyone to today's CFA Society New Zealand webinar. So we're pleased to have our speakers, Lee Marshall and Daniel Turner from Hunter Campbell, who joins us today to provide more information on the job market. I believe it's a very timely topic at the moment, and mindful that both Lee and Daniel might refer to this, I'm not sure, during the presentation, but the latest statistics that I've seen on the unemployment rate in New Zealand is sitting at around 5.2%. And I think this is probably the highest it's been in the last 5 years. So it'd be good to get some insights from Hunter Campbell today. So, and I'm pretty sure that, a number of us online are being impacted by this and the economic conditions. And so it would be good to get some advice, maybe guidance, especially within the accounting and finance industries today. So just a brief introduction of myself. So I'm JD Van Heerden. I've been a CFA member for several years. I've worked in different industries, including the investments industry, academia, consultancy business, the finance business partnering roles, and currently as head of sales at Synlait, which is a dairy company and I think most of you will probably know us best for making infant formula product. I've been serving as the CFA New Zealand South Island ambassador, so I'm based in Christchurch for the last 6 years, and then also for the last couple of years or so as vice chair, focusing on membership engagement. So that's the brief introduction myself. More importantly, though, we've got Lee and Daniel with us today. So Lee is the managing partner at Hunter Campbell. And over the past 10 years, Lee has led Hunter Campbell as managing partner and built a strong reputation as a specialist recruiter in New Zealand's accounting sector, with a particular focus on executive placements for CFOs. He's well known for supporting clients with strategic talent management and advisory. He's deeply committed to advancing the accounting profession, and Lee has founded both the Future CFO and Future Finance Leaders Development programs, as well as launched the Hunter Campbell Mood of the CFO survey in New Zealand. So welcome, Lee. Really happy to have you here today. We also have Daniel Turner, Manager of Financial Services at Hunter Campbell. So Daniel brings over a decade of experience in finance recruitment and manages Hunter Campbell's financial services team. Known for his strategic approach and deep market insight, Daniel has supported clients across New Zealand and globally in securing high-impact talent across banking, insurance, and financial services. Starting his career in post-GFC London, he developed specialist search methodology focused on long-term value and alignment. Daniel continues to shape the sector through talent advisory and leadership appointments that drive lasting business outcomes. So welcome to you as well, Daniel. All right, so I think I'm going to hand over at that point to Lee first, who's going to take us through the first part, and followed by Daniel. And then afterwards, we'll have a bit of time on Q&A. And I believe we'll also be able to post some of the questions online. So if you don't want to ask the question, you're welcome to post it online, and we'll address those questions as well. So Lee, over to you.
Fantastic. Thank you, JD. Welcome to everyone online and people who may dial in and listen to the recording later on as well. As JD said, we are here to go through a job market update. Just a little bit more about Hunter Campbell. And thank you for the kind words, JD. But we are a specialist recruitment business that actually has three divisions, as well as the accounting and financial services team. We also have a sales and marketing specialist team, as well as a supply chain, procurement, and operations team. 35 staff up here in Auckland. We've been around in business for just over 11 years now. As JD said in our introductions, we are, I guess, we play at the consulting end of the market and really like to support our clients, not just with finding talent, but in that sort of consulting and advisory space as well. We've got very strong relationships with a number of member bodies, including CFA, of course, but also with CP Australia, CANS, and Infins as well. And these relationships really help us, I guess, serve the communities that we work within on a daily basis. And we've all got a very strong passion about learning and development, talent management, succession planning, but really just the networking part of the market that we work in as well. Today we're here to talk about the job market, generally from a New Zealand perspective, but also very much about the banking and financial services sector as well, which Daniel obviously leads the team in, and we'll talk in a lot more specific detail. We'll talk a little bit about what clients and candidate sort of angles are as well, and a little bit of advice on people that may be entering the job market. And as JD said, that there are a high number of applications coming through, which you would expect in a recessionary period, and obviously with the unemployment rate at a sort of a 10 or 11 year high at 5.2%, and opportunities for Q&A towards the end as well. Okay, we'll get into it. We'll sort of start with, and I'll kick things off before I hand over to Daniel, who will talk about the financial services markets in particular. But I'll start a little bit around the New Zealand market specifically at a high level. Look, the graph on the top right there really is just highlighting sort of a 12 or 13 year view of what job ad volumes have been like over the last sort of decade, and you can see the COVID effect, and then you can see the recovery that we're in at the moment. Job ad numbers specifically, so the graph on the bottom right there, you'll see that we've obviously had a very strong decline in job ad volumes since sort of the middle of 2022 and early 2023. This information has come through from seek.co.nz and shows that job ad volumes have fallen about 8% since last year across the board. It has stabilised somewhat in the last couple of months. So the rate of decline since November 2022 is now at its slowest rate. So that indicates a possible stabilisation. But you'll see there that we are still some way behind the highs of sort of 2017 to 2019, and certainly quite some distance behind the post-COVID rush that we saw in the employment market between 21 and 23. This year in particular, has seen some real mixed signals. So January, at the start of this year, we actually saw a very strong month with a 4% increase in job ads from the December of 2024. And that was the largest gain in 12 months. But since then, we've actually seen a little bit of a yo-yo in the job ad listings up and down the country. Overall, job ad numbers are still down. So essentially, we are in a very tight market from a job ad perspective. Application numbers often go literally in the opposite vertical to job ad listings, and that's really in line with what you would expect to see in an economic slowdown. So the graph on the top right of your screen there shows just what we are facing from an application perspective. Huge surge from a very low base in 2022 through to where we are now. Over the last 4 to 5 months, again, we've seen that little bit of stabilisation coming into the market. From November to December in 24, applications per job increased 2% year on year, but applications are now 26% higher than what we've been experiencing in the 12 months prior. Obviously, just down to rising unemployment and fewer job listings, basically fueling increased competition for viable roles. Daniel will talk more specifically about the financial part of the market shortly. I guess the labour market is very much linked to productivity in New Zealand. So when we have a low level of productivity, we see a pretty slow labour market. And that's exactly what we're seeing now. Economic headwinds and contraction in key sectors like construction and public sector layoffs have really driven increased numbers of joblessness. Just on I guess the regional piece, which we don't have the data showing here, but Wellington has with the public sector job cuts, which have been very well documented, have seen around about 5 or 6% month on month decline in public sector job numbers. So application rates down in Wellington are very, very high. Job listings are very, very low. We've also seen sort of emigration and I guess a hollowing out of the New Zealand talent market ever since COVID. So we go back to 2021 in the post-COVID recovery period, and we lost an awful lot of talent who were leaving New Zealand. And you may recall the brain drain that was well documented around that time. Despite some sort of positive net migration numbers that mainstream media have picked up, actually over the past sort of 2 to 3 years, that trend unfortunately for us has continued in key areas. So we continue to lose talented people in the finance and accounting sector to the likes of Australia, Asia, but mainly the UK, and we'll come on to the UK market a little bit later on when we're talking about the supply and demand equation. And what we're seeing. But look, all in all, the New Zealand job market is exactly where you would probably expect it to be, given that we are in the sort of the worst economic environment that we've had since the early 90s. Unemployment rate is on the rise and possibly about to reach its peak over the next 3 to 4 months. And the economy is wading through mud in its recovery from a pretty low level over the past sort of 12 to 18 months. I'll hand over to Daniel to talk about the financial services job market.
Thanks, Lee, and hi to everyone. As Lee and JD mentioned, I run Hunter Campbell's financial services team. This is my 4th year with CFA presenting the webinar, and look, I'll keep today as practical as possible too. So hopefully everyone leaves today with a few pointers in the right direction to help navigate through what is a pretty challenging environment at the moment and has been for the last 2 years. So specific to financial services, look, there's 2 charts here. So what we're seeing is applications are at elevated levels. So as Lee referenced, you can see the dip there when COVID hit. From a peak of 2020 through to 2022, this was the time in the market where we saw applications at historically low levels. In respect to job ads, which have increased significantly as companies are finding it really difficult to source and find talent. So one goes one way and one goes the other. This was a period of in the market really where the supply and demand equation was completely out of sync. Candidates were able to be more forthright in their demands. We saw quite demanding sort of rhetoric from candidates around salaries, around job titles, and really, been able to negotiate quite directly with their employers around, or potential employers around, those terms and conditions of their new role. What we have seen is ultimately a correction from that period where candidates had more bargaining power. Fast forward into the current climate, job advertisements are at historically low levels, reflecting really the state of the NZ economy, the global economy, global events like the war in Israel and Palestine. We've had the Pakistan-India conflict. We've had the tariffs, which just create volatility. during periods where it's volatile, we see ultimately people tend to stay in their roles. Candidates prefer to like stability, but also companies tend to be quite conservative in their hiring intent as well. So it's been a rather difficult period, and really with people staying in their current roles and preferring just to ride out this volatile period and maybe put their employment search on hold. Without people moving jobs, ultimately we don't have that churn, which creates opportunities for people to move into positions too. Job applications are up, but look, in some respects, I believe this is a little misleading. We get a lot of interest from people overseas. We get a lot of interest from people locally who, on the financial services side, is one of the more attractive sectors. People want to move into this space, and so we get people applying that have no relevant experience. So it can be a little misleading around when you look at the application numbers and break down who's applying, the actual individuals that have tangible experience within financial services. So application numbers are high, again reflecting New Zealand is still a good destination for people to look to move to. But as Lee alluded to, we're losing a lot of our talent offshore. A lot of the 2 to 4 year analysts going offshore to Sydney, Melbourne, but predominantly London. London's back on the map again. So applications are up in that respect. Across the core areas where I spend most of my time, so the bullet points here: corporate finance, investment banking, funds management, credit and treasury, all these areas are down. And so corporate finance really refers to working for listed, unlisted companies within their internal corporate finance, corporate development teams. There's been a significant reduction in the availability of those roles. On the investment banking side, there's been a bit of a peak in analyst roles as people leave the country, but again, still few and far between. Funds management is very much down, as is credit and treasury. There has been an uptick in roles across the banking sector, which is more corporate banking, business banking's down, more retail banking, but a lot of those roles are frontline retail branch roles, which not necessarily the roles that CFA, part qualified or qualified individuals tend to apply for. So as a whole, there are some green shoots, but it's not necessarily in the traditional categories where I spend most of my time and where most of today's audience will be looking to move. There is a demand for financial advisors, which has become, look, it's always been a lucrative pathway, but there appears to be, in the last couple of years, a number of very successful advisors retiring. And so with those individuals retiring, there's a demand to get, the next individuals through into those areas. So it is a long-term career pathway. It does take a good 3 to 5 years plus to build up a book of clients. But ultimately, if you're looking for a long-term career pathway, to get into financial advice within private wealth, that you think of the likes of Milford, Alberium, Craigs, Forsyth Barr, JB Ware, Jarden, to aspire to be a financial advisor, they are all looking to hire good people, but ultimately people that have networks. So we have seen an uptick in roles within both the advice and the support function for those advisor roles too. What I would say is, look, don't let the availability of roles discourage you. Good candidates still getting opportunities. There's certain steps you can take to stand out from the crowd, which we'll run through. It's not all doom and gloom. People are still getting jobs, but again, you need to really apply a strategic approach to your employment search to get a result and to stand out from the volume.
Just before we move on to the next slide, I'll just close off Daniel's comments there by saying that as a business, just to support what Daniel's saying about the application numbers being high, but the suitability being low, around about 15% of our placements at Hunter Campbell are made from direct advertising, which is a really low number when you consider the volume of roles that we place. So the vast majority of our roles are placed through our professional networks, using our database, creating market maps, traditional headhunting methodology as well. So that's just to give you some further context there. There's also a really interesting report came out a couple of months ago from another recruitment business that said suitability of applications for roles within the accounting and finance sector was as low as 8%. So even if you see a role which has 100 applications, only around 8% of those are actually suitable or eligible for that role. So there is a huge difference between application volume and quality and suitability as well. So very, very real tight talent market for us to navigate our way through at the moment.
From an employer's perspective, so you think when we take roles to market, when we sit down with our clients and run through what is of interest, what skill sets, what's experience. So we've summarised really here a number of bullet points of areas that are certainly of demand. Point one on the top is there is a consistent demand for capable and credible analysts. Again, we're losing people at that 2 to 5 year mark to working offshore, and these individuals come back with 7 to 10 years experience ultimately. So there's a void of capable analysts in the market. So again, it's an area for people to move into. There has been a steady amount of hiring across the advisory firms, the investment banks, the big four that have lost a lot of people to moving offshore. In funds management, we've placed quite a high volume of roles to really fill people that have moved on from those opportunities. But the demand from clients varies around what that capability looks like. And this is why the CFA is really relevant. We often have briefs from clients where they refer specifically to hiring someone that is a part qualified CFA or a CFA charter holder to come on board, because it's a really practical and hands-on membership and qualification. But what you can do practically, take additional steps, enroll in courses, try to increase your capability, because ultimately being hired as an analyst or an associate or a senior analyst, ultimately the core of what you're doing is in financial analysis, financial modelling and insights. The stronger you are in these areas, the more attractive your profile will be, and ultimately that'll help you to move employers. Point two, adaptability and agility, which is actually really over the last couple of years with the market being in a bit of a downturn. I'll break this down into a number of key parts. Employers looking to hire people that can have a willingness to do what's required. Your attitude goes a long way. You're really to muck in and get stuck in and support the business. So look, busy teams, in some respects, leaner teams with people being let go or reorganisations and restructures. Our clients looking to hire people that are adaptable, resilient, agile, can get stuck in and can really support. So that comes down to your attitude and your ability to pick up new areas of business, but secondly, your ability just to pivot and to be adaptable to lend your hand to many different things within a business where you're required the most. So what that requires is an ability to learn. Think of an interview context where employers are looking for real life examples of where you've been able to pivot or pick up a new skill. So think about what have you learned and how can you convey that in an interview setting to give a hiring manager peace of mind that A, you've got the willingness, but B, you've got the capability to learn on the job and pick up new skills. It goes a long way. Thirdly is a really generic point, but again, it's a consistent theme, which is around communication skills. Often our clients talk about having the right analytical profile, but as well as matching that with the communication capability too. And so really refined and articulate communication when we take roles to market, it's a consistent message from our clients. So really your ability to converse with a diverse stakeholder base, your ability to condense lots of information into actionable insights, to be mindful of who are you speaking to, who is the audience, what level, what is their financial literacy. If you're speaking to a sales and marketing person as an internal stakeholder, really not getting into too much detail around some of the really technical financial terms. What are they looking to get out of the conversations? Be mindful of who's the audience, what is the purpose of the meeting, and how can you give them some really key points, but not being too technical. In an interview setting, again, think about examples where you've done this, where you've tailored your communication, where you've altered your approach, where you've been able to really think about and be mindful of who is the audience and adapt your comms and how you approach that conversation. And again, often our clients refer to having someone that is good from an analysis and modelling perspective, but someone that can then take that information, sit down, work with a CFO, work with a sales and marketing person, work with a technical person to really convey the insights of that analysis and modelling and research. Point four, Commitment, we've seen people move employers and change roles at less timeframes. Now 18 months to 2 years appears to be sort of acceptable tenure. From a client perspective, when we take roles to market, we often get the point around, look, we're willing to invest heavily in this person, we're willing to mentor, to train, to develop. We want to get some good return on investment. So think about, again, in an interview setting, how can you give people peace of mind that there's an element of commitment to the business, that you're willing and able to learn, that you are ambitious to progress, but not to a point where they've got a concern that you'll be leaving the business in 2 years. So internal promotion is a good thing, but line managers still want a good 18 months to 2 years in a position within a business, and then you can move internally into a new role and with their blessing. So have a think about how you communicate that in an interview setting, how you can convey ambition and motivation without giving too many red flags around how long you're going to be in this position for, particularly at that 2 to 5 year mark where there's so much investment from a business and a line manager and a team in your development within that business. And then the final point is diversity of thought, which actually has come up quite a lot in the last 6 to 9 months, and diversity in all facets is important to our clients. But we've really sort of decided today to focus on the thought piece, because we take roles to market. Often our clients communicate to us that they've got lots of people of a similar background or profile. What they want is not a duplicate. They want someone that can come from a different angle, that can bring a different perspective, different view, different thought process, that can complement who they have in the existing team. So what that could look like is people that have traveled, that have spent time overseas, that have worked in different environments or different businesses, have embraced it and reading books, learning, just a different perspective that comes from getting outside of one business or one employer over an extended period of time. So we took a role to market with a fund manager recently, and that was a key part of the brief. Was when looking at, say, global equity stocks, where their universe was about 2,000 stocks, they wanted someone that had spent time overseas or had done reading and travel that could bring a different perspective to, say, someone that had worked in one business in New Zealand that saw things a certain way or was mentored and developed a certain way. So have a think about what is unique to you. Where can you bring a different perspective? How can you complement an existing team? It could be in the qualifications you've done. You could have potentially studied, say, engineering science with finance, or economics and arts. So just a different combination that allows you to come from a different angle or perspective is another theme that we've seen a lot of interest in from clients when they're looking to, as the market is tough and challenging, how can we win here? Where can we get a different view from bringing someone into our business?
I think a really practical example of where this could play out is if you are part of a larger organisation, and the major banks in New Zealand and the corporate world are the best examples of this. Getting access to projects outside of your normal day job is a really good way to diversify your skill set. So be it a system implementation, an AI project, something in the customer space, marketing, putting your hand up and getting that diverse experience on your CV as you're working through your technical expertise part of your career is a really good way of diversifying that thought process. So that's the kind of the employer view. Daniel, do you want to talk a little bit about what candidates are looking for at the moment?
Yeah, absolutely. And on the flip side, again, we speak to 30 to 40 candidates on any given week. We meet 10 to 15 individuals on any given week, and ultimately I'll summarize here the themes around what candidates are looking for and how that's evolved over the past period. Rem and salary, rem and compensation. Ultimately, look, with the market being tough, interest rates high, cost of living high, in the last period, there's been a contraction in company size. Bonuses don't tend to be paid across the board or to their full amounts. People aren't getting pay increases to reflect the cost of living. So as a real consistent theme, we've seen an interest in rem and compensation. I think from our perspective and from a recruitment lens, of course, it's key, and we're certainly not here to downplay the importance of your earning in your particular position. I would just question and advise to ask about it at the right time in a process and in the right way. We have people call us up, and point one is, what is the role paying, before we've even had an understanding of who the person is or what is their background, or they go into a a client interview and you get to the final 10 minutes of the interview and the client will ask any questions and they'll go, well, yeah, where's the REM for the role and what's it paying? And it doesn't send the best message. So again, it's a key part. Ask about it at the right time and in the right manner is certainly the way to go, which will hold you in good stead. Professional development opportunities, we've seen more and more interest in as people are becoming a bit more ambitious and looking to move and advance their careers. So with people spending less time in a role compared to 5 to 10 years ago, people are looking at what is the immediate role in front of us, what is the short-term opportunity, what is the long-term opportunity, where can the role evolve to, where will it grow, where can I develop with this business, and what does progression look like, what is viable in the organisation. This can be quite different if you're coming from, say, a PwC of the world where you've got a lot of hierarchy and ultimately you're used to annual sort of increments and promotions in the business. That can be quite different to going to, say, a fund where they've got 12 people and ultimately quite a flat structured business. So progression can mean different things in different companies, but it's a consistent theme where people are looking to go, I'm looking for my next role, but I want to continue to develop. So, ask a question in interviews, use the interview process as a chance to ask those questions around what does the development look like in the role? What does the internal pathway look like to move? And where can you continue to progress to within the business? Remember, the interviews are always a two-way process, right? So it's as much for you to get what you need from that conversation too. Stability, which we alluded to before, in light of the current market in the past 18 to 24 months, we've seen, really employees look to ask questions around stability, to stay in their roles longer. But if they are looking to move, to really understand what is the tenure of the existing team, what does staff turnover look like, staff attrition, and to form a view on that. You don't want to be joining a business where they've had a high amount of turnover within the existing team for a number of reasons, particularly in light of the current climate. So a real consistent theme is people wanting to know what that looks like in the business and witnessed and evidenced by employee tenure. The people and organisational culture thing, which I think for me is probably the most important. You spend 8 to 10 hours a day working with your colleagues, your managers, the wider business. So, trying to get a view on, and if you're looking to embed yourself into a business, what are their values? Do they align to you? The environment ultimately will determine, can we get the best out of you? And that comes down to working with people that are of a similar mindset in some respects. So use the interview process, ask the questions around who are the people, the team, the backgrounds, what is the culture like in the team and the wider business? What do people do in a social setting? What is the leadership style of the manager? Because the manager ultimately will make or break the role. They can make it a really enjoyable environment or not so much. And you want someone that will take an interest in your development. So ask the questions about the people and the culture to form a view on does that work for you in your current stage of your role as well. And then the final one is the branding piece, which you can look at this multiple ways. An attractive brand, a reputable brand adds weight and credibility to your CV. You think of the likes of Milford, NZ Super, your household brand name organisations. It is important, but it's certainly not the be-all. I know when I was recruiting in London many years ago, back in 2010, you'd meet a New Zealander that comes across and they'd worked at a company that no one in London knew of. So it means more in the local market than it does in the international market. But again, working in a good business with a good team, particularly locally, it's a piece in the puzzle. It will give you momentum in your career, particularly in the New Zealand context. If you join Super Fund or Milford, that does add a lot of weight to your CV. So we find candidates are looking to join a brand where there is an alignment, where it's an attractive brand with good people, where they can be at their best. You think of on the corporate side, the likes of Fonterra, good brand, global business, in New Zealand, which appears to be a really attractive brand too, where people want to work for that business. Again, adds weight and credibility to your profile.
Thanks, Dan. So I guess really this is just to summarise where we are in terms of the current state of play. So job listings are down, application numbers are up, and we're in an economic sort of bind. So really just wanting to really talk about the things as a as you work through either your career with your current employer or considering things externally, what does this really all mean to you? We are in a talent short market, and in some respects, Danny made the point earlier, which is very right. Great candidates will find great opportunities even in markets like this. So you do have to back yourself. We've gone through a period of wage inflation, so increased salaries and comp packages have been in play, and even though that's stabilised now, we have just gone through a period of inflation, so we're probably in a better state than we were maybe 3 years ago. But really, it's not just about that money, and the things that you need to be considering are, what else does an organisation offer you? L&D and career pathways is really important. So understanding where roles might take you, and are they still investing in their people during tough periods? But Daniel made the point around culture, and for me, to take that a step deeper, for me it's around values alignment. So ensuring that the current employer that you are at, or the one that you're considering moving to, have a closely aligned set of values to you. So if wellness is important, and then making sure that the employer is aligned with you on that as well. We, as JD mentioned in the introduction, we've commissioned a survey called the Mood of the CFO. We're into our second year, which gets launched in about 2 weeks' time. One of the findings from the survey was that 48% of larger corporate businesses are in the office more now than they were the 12 months prior. So whilst workplace flexibility and remote working is important, and absolutely people expect to have it, and we are seeing that continued shift back to the office, and I think that will be a trend that will continue on for some time yet. The comments that we get from senior leaders is that the effect that working from home has on both culture, collaboration, and actually the trust equation is very difficult to navigate. So we're seeing, last year we would have seen businesses being back in the office maybe 3 or 4 days a week. We're now seeing it being more 4 days with an optional day at home. And I guess the final point on this before I hand over to Daniel, who's going to finish off with some practical things when you are considering moving companies. Recruitment at the moment is challenging because of all the things that we've spoken about, none more so than decision making. So processes that would normally take us 4, 5, 6 weeks are now taking 7, 8, 9 weeks. There are additional layers of decision makers in the equation. There are additional layers of authorization for salary, and people are taking extra or adding in extra steps for recruitment processes to make sure that they've absolutely got the right person coming on board. So if you are going to go either to market to hire somebody for yourself in your team, or as a candidate entering into a process, just expect that things will take a little bit longer than what we're really used to. Dan, do you want to just talk about some practical tips as to what to consider if you're looking for a role? And once Daniel has done that, we'll then have a short moment for Q&A, and we'll check in the chat to see if there's any questions being posted online as well.
Yeah, of course. So when looking for a role, there's some overlap here with what we've talked about earlier today, but just I think some practical takeaways for the audience. We've broken this down into 2 parts. So one, to really look at the wide opportunity, and second of all, your approach to changing roles. So when you look at the opportunity, try to look past purely REM and compensation and job title. And so I referred to a conversation I had recently with someone that called up. There was a new contact, Campbell, is just on the market looking for her next role. Came up, didn't give any introduction to where she was working, but basically the conversation went along the lines of, I've seen the advertisement on Seek. What is the title or the flex in the title, and what is the role paying? And so Again, I get it, tough climate, tough market, but REM and title are important parts, but particularly at that sort of first chapter in your career, try to look past the role content and try to look past the title and the REM and look at the role content. What is the exposure that you're going to be getting in the opportunity? Is it a growth opportunity? Is there room for you to continue to develop within that business? So what are you going to develop, and what experience are you going to pick up from moving into this position? What does progression look like in the team and the wider business, medium term versus short term? So look at the content of the role. The hiring manager, I think, for me, is the most important piece of the puzzle. I think I've said this in the last 3 years of these webinars. This individual, particularly in that chapter of your career where you're in that 0 to 4 to 5 year mark in particular, to get someone that's going to take a real interest in you and your development, someone that's going to be a mentor, that will take you under their wing, that will push you, that will challenge you, that will get you exposure across the business and outside of the immediate team is critical. So when going into a business, do your research around who is the line manager, what is their background, ask questions in the interview around what is their leadership style or their management style, what do they want to get out of this hire, where can this person move to in the business, and again, really test the values aligned with this person too, to make sure that you're on the same page and that you work well together. So particular focus on those first 2 points around the content of the role and who you're going to be working with and who's going to be mentoring you. The leadership team is also really important. Look into their backgrounds, the stability in that team, and hopefully a leadership team that hasn't had considerable turnover as well. So you've got an engaged and aligned leadership function in the business. What can you learn from them? What exposure can you get from those individuals? How can you, when you come into the role, work with them and again continue to develop your profile in those organizations? So look at the team, look at their backgrounds, what has been their movement. The good thing with LinkedIn these days is you can actually go on and look at their profiles and see the movement between their careers. You think prior LinkedIn, it was actually quite a hard thing to gauge, whereas now most people are on LinkedIn and it should be there for you to do your research. The organisation, which we've touched on again, a good reputable brand adds weight and credibility to your CV, but it's not the be all. But again, a good brand will certainly, people take notice of when people get into a good business because they know the caliber of people in those companies. So navigate to a business, a good brand, a good organisation that's known for excellence, because that will also hold you in good stead. The second part, really your approach to changing employers, which is more how you go about doing so. Preparation is key. One of the most important takeaways from today is do your preparation, look into the business, look into who you're meeting, think about what is the role and what are the competencies and behaviours, and look to think about the questions that may come up to test your behaviours and or competencies in those areas. So think about things like time management, prioritisation. Organisations like to hire people that are agile, that can learn, again, tangible examples of where you've learned a new skill or been proactive or willing to help out other people. Do your homework. It will hold you in good stead, and it sets you up to go into an interview with a bit more confidence, as opposed to being asked a question by a client or two where maybe you don't answer it as well as you can do. As an example that doesn't come to mind, and then you're on the back foot, and then the interview can unravel from there. So please do your homework. Challenge yourself, get out of your comfort zone, which really comes down to continually learning new skills. The minute you get complacent, where can you pick up new skills? And as Lee mentioned before, that could be putting yourself in a hat for different initiatives, different projects across the business, but continually demonstrating a willingness and proactivity to learn and evolve and continue to develop your capabilities. So the minute you're complacent, get out, learn new things, work across the business, pick up a seat on new projects, or put your hand up within the business to learn new things. It demonstrates an ambition, and it also demonstrates an ability and an aptitude to learn new things. Networking and personal branding both tie in quite nicely together. Networking, again, you've got CFA events, you've got Infins events, you've got financial markets events. Get out, meet new people, go to events over lunchtime, make an effort to not go with the same people, but to meet new connections, meet new people, particularly in financial services. Many of the roles that are filled are through contacts, they aren't always advertised. So it'll come down to people knowing certain people and having relationships. So, make an effort to get out and meet new people, form new connections, post the meeting, add people on LinkedIn, continue to build your brand and your network, because things will come your way off the back of doing the networking piece really well, which again ties into personal branding. But work on this, attend events, make sure your LinkedIn is up to date. We've had people before who have been declined from roles because the LinkedIn profile isn't accurate, or maybe the profile pic isn't the most professional picture, or it's got things on there that aren't maybe so conducive to a corporate business, or so on. So really ensure that your personal profile is squeaky clean, it's up to date, it's accurate, it's professional, it sends the right message, it's got all the right bits and pieces on it that people can reference, because employers will jump on there to cross-reference your CV or your profile before or after an interview has been conducted as well. I think in summary, look to differentiate yourself. And I said this last year, think about the value proposition associated to you. So not so much what the responsibilities were or what you were doing, but what was the end impact. So think about the value you can bring to a business. What can you offer that's unique to you? Be clear on your value proposition. Ultimately, what is that return on investment associated to hiring you, bringing you into a company? Continue to think about that, and that will hold you in really good stead. Use the interview as an opportunity to ask good questions, to demonstrate your interest, demonstrate your ambition, your aptitude to learn, your willingness to learn. And so people leave an interview, or clients leave an interview thinking, impressive candidate, asks all the right questions. They want to work for us. There's a desire to learn, and then you're 3/4 of the way there. Be positive, demonstrate a good work ethic, a desire to work hard, and a commitment to a business, and things will certainly come your way. I think the points I talked about today are pretty high level and generic. What I would say is, if anyone has any specific questions, which we'll address now, but that are more suitable for offline, please do reach out to me as well. I'm more than happy to have a conversation or a coffee to go through what actually is relevant to you from today's session as well.
Great. Thank you, Daniel, and thank you, Lee. Very valuable insights, especially in a market like today. So I think let's open it up for questions from the attendees. Louisa, I don't know if we will be able to, can we maybe open up the chat as well? It looks like it's been disabled, so I'm not sure if we can activate that so that we can see some online questions.
Pop something in there and hopefully that will work.
Oh, there we go.
Just while we're waiting for anyone that may have a question, again, a lot of today's content is specific to the individual. So if you don't feel today's session is the right time to ask, please do reach out post. Always happy to have a conversation to go through it on a bit more of a personal and specific level to yourself.
While we wait for online questions, maybe Dan and Lee, one from my side. So I've heard quite a number of times recently that one of the first screenings when it comes to sending in your CVs happens via AI or a robotic screening these days. Do you guys have any advice in terms of how to structure your CV so that at least it doesn't get kicked out by one of those AI screening agents before it even makes the cut to land in front of the hiring manager?
Yeah, it's a good question, JD. Look, our industry, like most, is not immune to disruption from an AI from AI. I don't believe that at the professional end of the market we are seeing those tools being applied too much, particularly in New Zealand. So if you are a CFA qualified analyst applying for a highly technical role, I think the chances of your CV being screened out by an AI agent is fairly minimal at this point. I think that those tools are being used by some of the larger corporates for the for lower skill, high volume roles at this point. But look, the only thing I would say in particular is, the and actually, this isn't just because of AI. This is general advice that I think should stand for most people. What you really should have is two CVs. Um, one one is your master CV, which holds all of your experience and all of your career history in there. And the second CV that you use is the CV that you use to apply for a specific role. So you need to make sure that you are reading the job ad, checking in with the position description, and tailoring your experience and pulling out the relevant experience for that particular application. So, for every application, you should have a fresh CV and a fresh cover letter if cover letters are being requested. So that should also help from an AI perspective, because really all that AI is doing is a cross reference, an automation cross reference of, does this person have the right number of years experience and the right keywords in their CV. So I think that general advice works both for in real life and from an AI perspective as well.
Yeah, the 2 points I was going to mention on that Lee's covered off, which is really around having the right keywords in your CV. Ultimately, we search and AI tools search for certain keywords, and if they're not in the CV, then you won't be included in that process as such. So ensure that they are there, but ensure that it's relevant for the role, and so tailor your CV to a point to suit the role in question. One of the areas where we do see people get screened out, but this is more from talent personnel, is where there's spelling mistakes or inconsistencies or errors in the CV. So just take the extra time to make sure your CV is accurate, it's up to date, it's correct. There are no mistakes in it. But again, crucially for the role, that it's tailored and relevant ultimately.
Great, thanks for that, Daniel and Lee.
Yeah, we've got a question on the chat there, JD, as well.
That's right. Yeah, just came through. So question is, any advice for CFA candidates who are switching careers to finance? How can one stand out with no prior relevant experience?
Yeah, it's a good question.
It is a good question. I'll answer at a general level, and then let Daniel sort of speak specifically to this market. It's one of the most challenging things to do in this current market is to carve out a new career. So when you've got high levels of applications and lots of people looking for work, to get your first break, if you're coming from, let's say you're coming from a retail bank, and trying to get into an analyst role within a corporate finance environment, it's going to be an extremely challenging thing to do right now, and for several reasons, none more so than if you're a hiring manager and you're looking for 2 years experience with this system in a type of business like this, you can generally find that skill set. So giving opportunities for people to switch careers is going to be really challenging. So that's an unfortunate bit of feedback for whoever's posed that question. But we've got to be real around what opportunities are out there at the moment as well.
Yeah, what I would say is, often we have these conversations with people that are sitting in accounting and they want to get into more finance or corporate finance within sort of that pivot across, and they may have been through the CFA or partway through. My first port of call to these questions is really to exhaust the internal pathway first, because what you've got at your disposal is maybe you've got 3 years working at BNZ, and actually your name and your track record and your reputation in that business is strong. So look to move across to a team internally first before you look to make the move externally. The external move is a much harder move to make, where you don't have the experience and you're not a known quantity, or you don't have the track record. So exhaust the internal pathway first. If there are no viable opportunities internally, think about things like additional qualifications you can do to bolster your skill set, your experience, but also demonstrate your desire and your ambition to make the move. And then the last point I'd make is be flexible. I think particularly where it gets a bit difficult for people is where they are looking to make the move across without the experience, but they're their expectations around salary and level are out of sync. So the market is really challenging at the moment. And so you may need to reduce your salary expectations. You may need to take 2 steps down on your salary with the view to realign and then increase and then go again. So you could be sitting on 110K and go, look, I need to get into an analyst role that's paying 85. So I need to be flexible. I need to reduce my compensation expectations with the view to get in, learn the fundamentals, and then go again. That would be the 3 key parts. So look internally, exhaust that, additional qualifications and skills you can pick up through training, and then really be flexible on title and compensation to make that move. Once you've made the move, then you're away.
Right, thanks, Daniel. And Lee. Right, look, I think we've pretty much ran out of time. There's no more online questions that I can see, but just repeating again what Daniel mentioned earlier. So you see the details, the contact details on the screen at the moment. So feel free to reach out to either Lee or Daniel if there are any other questions that we haven't had a time to address today. Look, I mean, obviously very valuable insights from both Lee and Daniel today. So really appreciate that. Appreciate your time. Understandably, it's a difficult market at the moment, and you can see the number of participants as well. You know, there's keen interest in understanding how to approach job applications and especially interviews as well. So thanks again for all the valuable insights today. Really appreciate it. In close, I'll just remind the attendees today as well of the upcoming events. So this Friday, we've got the Future of Finance, Spotlight on ESG and Ethical Investing. And then on the 16th of September, we've got one which I think is very relevant to today's topic as well, which is next level of communication skills. So effective presentation with Nick Bird. And then, of course, the CFA New Zealand Investment Conference, which is happening on the 4th of December in Auckland. So I hope to see as many of you there as possible. Right, so that brings us to the end of today's session. So thanks again very much. And to all the candidates, good luck. And thank you for joining us.